welcome to episode 13 of this podcast. You may not agree with us,
but
I'm Lowery.
And I'm Eric Thomas.
And we welcome you into, as I said, episode 13 being presented by Massey Power Sports. And right now, Massey's, they're big Carolina Panther fans and they're supporting their Panthers. The Panthers have a battle with the Kansas City Chiefs coming up. So how about a little shout out for the Carolina Panthers? And also if you're thinking about a Christmas gift and you're into side-by-sides, you got 0% financing right now at Massey's. And also by Modley's Plumbing and Heating, you can dial them up at 304-253-HELP. Well, you know, Eric, I said this is episode 13, and I guess all the way, or depending on the way you look at this, it can either be lucky number 13 or bad number 13. A lot of people think it's bad when 13 falls on Friday.
Yeah, when it falls on Friday, they say it is, but I always have to work that day, so it doesn't matter whether it's Friday the 13th or Saturday the 13th. But it's bad news for high school.
That's right. And that's why I led in with that.
It's bad news for the high school.
Yeah, bad news for the high school. And Eric, I think you would agree with me. And you know, for our people out there, you can comment on this. I don't think anybody thought that follows high school sports in any capacity at any level, whether it would be if you have a daughter cheering or son or daughter in the band, a dance team, football player, whatever sport that your son or daughter may participate in. I don't think no one thought we would be right here where we are with these high school football playoffs.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And when it first came down, you know, you and I talked. I knew back in August when it first happened and the shuffling right before the season started, I knew it wasn't going to end well. And just for the reason it needed a lot of things to happen to go smooth. Somebody was going to not feel like they were given a fair shake.
Well, here's where we are as of recording date, as of Monday, November the 18th. And this is what I got earlier this afternoon before we started recording, Eric. And I don't know, I know you actually work. I'm actually retired, so I have a little more time, and I did a lot of homework here today. But here's what I found out, that the Supreme Court is going to send it back to the circuit court, and it's going to be a judge in Fayette County who's going to be a part of this, that they will decide, and hopefully they can decide sooner rather than later so we can have high school football this coming weekend.
Yeah, I had the chance to read the article that you sent me, and from my understanding, they were wanting him to, like you say, the judge, I think it was Thomas Ewing, circuit judge out of Fayette County, to rule on the first injunctions that they said were not, that shouldn't have been granted to Wood County, in Mason County, because those counties don't have any jurisdiction over the other schools that they filed suit, and which I do understand where a couple of those teams are coming from, but what we stated is, won't this injunction just lead to another?
It very well could be. In fact, they were talking about a play-in game between St. Mary's and I'm trying to think who the team St. Mary's was going to play. I know I had told our producer, Regina, who it was. But nevertheless, that game, if it is played, and no one wants that to be played, they could play it, and then it may not even matter.
Yeah, and just be one of those things where the kids will bus to a neutral site probably.
Yes.
And play. I mean, it's just a mess. It really
is a mess. And here's another thing, too, and this is something that the SSAC came up with, and they said they were not going to fight Spring Mills. Spring Mills had said that, you know, they had reported an ineligible player. They had to forfeit 4 games. There was a federal act, the VETO Act.
Yeah. And
they said that they're not going to fight that, because had they have fought it, they may have been able to play single A, double A, and triple A, but it may have prolonged the 4A playoffs.
Exactly.
And they didn't want to do that. And I think that was a smart move.
That was a smart move for all parties, and the kid, and that's going to that's still going to linger.
Well, it will, but here's the thing too. I think that the fact that the federal court had been sided in the favor of Spring Mills, I don't think the SSAC could win in federal court with that. They might be able to win maybe local courts and Supreme Court overruling. The Supreme Court's just going to send it back down probably to the local court.
Yeah.
But I think since the federal court had already ruled that it was fine of the young man, and I don't really understand that whole act, that veto act. But nevertheless, Spring Mills is good. So anyway, that's going to stand, and Spring Mills is going to be seated number 2, regardless of which rating system that they use.
Okay, but then doesn't that bump a Huntington Highlanders?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I had that conversation today.
Something.
Well, Huntington, I was told today by someone you and I work with and know that Huntington was thinking about filing it, but they just want to play. They said that they were 9-1, and they have two teams 7-3 that might be ahead of them. And they said they're just tired of all this in court. They just want to get the games on, and they think Huntington will not do it. But you're right. If Huntington changes their mind to do it, and it'd be crazy that you might have 3 classes playing in the 4A class be delayed for another week or so.
But guess what? It wouldn't be crazy because it happened in volleyball.
Right. And that's another thing that we talk about in volleyball, because they're not sure yet. They think they're going to play the first week of December. They think it's going to be at West Virginia State University, but that has not been resolved as of recording this as of
Yeah,
yet.
so nothing surprises me now. Nothing.
No, nothing.
And it's just wild to live in this day and time where, like, you're going to be. I had a chance to talk to Shady Spring assistant basketball coach today, Sean Radford, and he said, "Look, this is what it's going to affect. Today is actual tryouts
For basketball.
Say a couple kids where they're still locked in football don't get to make the tryout, and say that team that guy makes the team. Well, parents are going to be mad that he's going to make the team over some kids that actually tried out.
Right.
So nobody thinks about all the little. It's a ripple effect.
Right.
You got wrestlers. I mean, you're going to be December 15th, 20th. They were even talking about playing some games on Sunday now.
Well, I was also told, too, that some basketball schedules that were made, that they may end up changing them. And, Eric, that's why I wore this REO Speedwagon hat from one of their famous hits, Roll with the Changes. And that's what you and I have to do, roll with the changes. Because whether we like them or whether we're not, a lot of times in life, you are given lemons and you got to make lemonades or try to make lemonade out the best way you can. And that's kind of where you and I, not just us, but all the people from all the media coaches, players, fans, everybody has to deal with.
Yeah, and the thing I look at on the horizon, a lot of the single A teams will suffer a lot because numbers. Why are you single A? Because you have less students, less numbers, least amount of numbers. I know for sure that everybody that played volleyball for Greenbrier West plays on the girls' basketball team.
Right.
I mean, you don't. It's a lot of AAA, 4A schools. You don't have that.
Right.
You might have 2 or 3,
Right.
maybe 1.
Right.
But the ripple effect of all that, and it's just. I just want to see him play.
Yes, and I think if you ask anybody, I think that probably the most common answer you would get what you just said. We just want to see him play.
Just want to see him play.
So with that said, I think we have to move on from high school and dive into college. We'll spend a little bit more time on college and the NFL this week, since we don't have as much to talk about in high school, because we thought we would be talking about the results of the first round and what upsets we had and this and that. And that's what we'd rather talk about, the games on the field, not what happens in the courtroom.
Yeah, I thought we'd be setting the stage for what could have been, what's going to be if they get it rolling. I'm telling you, all 4 classes will have some monumental games second round going into the semis. It's going to be a very exciting playoffs.
Yeah, this is so bad going to court. I don't think even Perry Mason could help him out. All right, we're going to switch gears to college football. And yes, our committee of 2 will talk about our 12-team bracket for the playoffs. But Eric, before we do that, we'll talk about some of the big games that will take place on Saturday, which is November the 23rd. And the biggest game perhaps will be in Columbus. It'll be undefeated Indiana against the Ohio State University. And let me just say this. I think if Ohio State loses, that would knock them out of the Big Ten title game, but they still could get in the playoffs. I think if Indiana would lose because of the strength of their schedule, I think they might go from being wherever the committee put them to all the way out.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. A lot hinges on this game for them because even in our research of me doing my bracket, I would find it hard to put them in even with the 1 loss over any 2-loss SEC school.
I would agree with that.
Because life on the road in SEC, we had a great time this past weekend just watching football, and now I'm really watching it because I want to go, man. My eyeball test, it looks better. I want to be close, and I'm telling you. The Indiana team, not knocking them, they're a great story, a feel-good story, but it's going to be tough for me to have them even over a Boise State.
Well, a Boise State team's going to have to be in.
But
One of those group of 4 teams has to be in.
But a lot of people will go, well, they don't play in the Big Ten, and Indiana does. But it's going to be tough. Indiana has to put all the chips in the bowl for this one.
And I think the only way Indiana can lose this game and maybe still stay in the playoff hunt, if it comes down to the wire, they lose by a field goal, a late touchdown. But I think if they get beat by 10 or more, I think Indiana would be out.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're heading in the right direction, but it'll take a lot for them to hang on and be in the 12.
Another game in the Big Ten I find intriguing. Penn State can't get to the Big Ten championship, so they've just got to keep winning to secure their spot in the playoffs. And they got to go on the road against Minnesota. And Minnesota is one of those teams, they're not really good, but they have an act over the years to be a middle-of-the-road team and then upset one of the higher-ranked teams.
Definite spoiler type of team, and that's one of those teams you don't want to, they want to ruin someone's season, and Penn State is the next in line. And you're right, Minnesota's a tough place to go play.
All right, I'm going to lay a little history on you, and I did my homework on this. Actually, I kind of knew this. Notre Dame and Army are playing this week, and they're playing in Yankee Stadium, and Army is undefeated. This is the 100th anniversary of where the Four Horsemen, where that began. They played in the Polo Grounds in 1924, and this is how that story of the Notre Dame Four Horsemen emerged in this upset of Army 100 years ago, 13-7. So this is a commemorative game 100 years later.
And the Polo Grounds, what, in New York?
In New York, and now they're playing in Yankee Stadium, and they'll configure the baseball field into a football field like Wrigley did last week when Northwestern and Ohio State played. So you got Army undefeated, 9-0. Army hasn't beat Notre Dame in our lifetime. The last time they beat Notre Dame was 1958. Now, granted, they don't play every year, but Notre Dame's won the last 15 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, that's just one of those games that Notre Dame really would do to play the armed forces, I guess, to really help their program, give them some money and stuff like that. But I think this is a sneaky game early on. If you let Army hang around, Notre Dame might be in a little trouble.
This is a playoff game because Army is trying to be that group of 4 teams. If they beat Notre Dame, then they already know they're going to play Tulane in their conference championship. Yeah. And then they have the traditional rivalry with Navy on December 14th. But if they get this one, Army might be able to slip past Boise State. And Notre Dame knows.
Because it's based on the highest ranked group of
and
4.
if they beat Notre Dame, that would definitely springboard them.
Definitely.
And Notre Dame knows they have to beat Army and USC if they're going to make the playoffs.
That's for sure. And we had a conversation about that too. These last 2 games are a real integral part of Notre Dame's resume to get in, because a lot of people, I mean, you want Notre Dame in it, but a lot of people will look at them and go, nah, if you lose Army and Northern
Illinois.
Yeah, I can't even remember the team.
Yeah, well, it's been so long ago, early September. But here's another thing, and I did a little homework, and I knew half of this. I'm going to see if you get it. The top 2 defenses stat-wise, and that's like about 12 different categories: scoring defense, takeaways, yards per game, the whole, instead of 9 yards, it's like 12 categories. I'll say the whole 12 yards. Do you know who the top 2 defenses are in the country?
Notre Dame would have to.
Notre Dame is number 2. They're number 2.
Number 1 based on all stats.
Yes.
Blah blah blah. Tennessee.
Well, it was Tennessee until Georgia. I'm 31 on them. It was Tennessee, but not anymore.
Okay. Well, I thought it was Tennessee.
No, you were right there, but it's not Tennessee anymore. In fact, Notre Dame is the only team in the country that is not allowed more than 24 points in any one game. In fact, Louisville got 24. They're the only team who scored in the 20s on them. No one else has even come close to that. But now they got another team, and it's going to surprise you because it surprised me.
Yeah.
Army. Army's got the number 1 defense in the country.
So take the under this weekend, guys.
Yeah, and I think it's like 50.5. And the reason I thought of this, because your father-in-law, when I saw him over the weekend, he said, the college football playoff, it's all wide open. He says, probably whoever's got the best defense might be the team that'll win it. And I said, well, Notre Dame's one of the top 2 defenses in the country, them in Tennessee, until Georgia put 31 on that. So just a little bit of history there.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. Well, that's going to be interesting to see, how these teams match up then and this Saturday. Because anytime you have 2 defensive teams in that category, that means they're well coached and well schemed, to stop offenses, and that will be interesting come Saturday.
All right, Eric, you got to do your thing. We do what with this podcast?
You need to like, share, and subscribe at Warden Broadcast Network, WBN, at YouTube.
That's right. And it's also brought to you by Massey Power Sports. Massey Power Sports, big fans of the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are hoping to have maybe the NFL's biggest upset when they take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe the Buffalo Bills soften the Chiefs up for them. Yes, we're going to give the Panthers a little love. Hopefully you can see that. The Panthers Hall of Honor right there. And also this podcast brought to you by Modley's Plumbing and Heating. You never know when you need a plumber till you need a plumber, and you never know when you need someone to take care of your heat. The heat goes out, and you can dial Molly's up at 304-253-HELP. You know, here's a game that when it was first scheduled, it looked like one of the better games. Two Blue Bloods, Alabama and Oklahoma, play Saturday night. And of course, Alabama trying to keep their playoff hopes alive, and Oklahoma's not had the kind of year that they thought they might.
Yeah, and Oklahoma, you know, this is a program that lost their starting quarterback who went in the portal. And I think he's a starting quarterback
He's
for
Oregon. That's right.
So, you know, when all this shuffling and changing, when you lose a key player like that, even when you're Oklahoma, I think that takes a lot out of you. And they've struggled a little bit, you know, adjusting to the SEC. And I don't think Alabama's going to feel sorry for them this week.
No, I don't think so, because Alabama's got a lot to play for, because they can't afford another loss if they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly right. So I think it's going to be a tough road to hoe for Oklahoma this weekend.
All right, now we're going to get a little closer to home and talk about the West Virginia Mountaineers coming off a disappointing home loss to Baylor. You had an opportunity to watch if not all that game.
Yes.
I didn't see it because Notre Dame and Virginia were playing at the same time, which, by the way, before we end this podcast, we'll have to talk about that fake punt between Notre Dame and Virginia.
Definitely
and I'm
need
going
to talk about that play.
explain that. And also I have some Big 12 news after we talk about this West Virginia and Baylor. Now, West Virginia is home, their final home game of the regular season against Central Florida.
Yeah, and one thing that's real disappointing about this West Virginia team, they've actually been way better on the road. Of course, they played their toughest opponents at home. And this game, it was eerie. If I'd have told you that West Virginia scored 28 points in the first half, rushed for 221 yards in the first half,
you think they'd win big?
Think they were winning big.
Yeah.
And it just what they won the time of possession. This shows you where stats are real skewed. They won the time of possession. They had 499 total yards to only 512 for Baylor.
Yeah.
But they gave up 2 quick touchdowns. They gave up a touchdown after cutting the lead to 28.
It was 35-28 at halftime.
But it was at this time though, it was 28-21. They go down. They cut the lead to 28-21,
right.
And then they score, make it 28. They let them score in 55 seconds.
Yeah.
Returned the kick, 41 yards, and gave up another touchdown. It was just, it was deflating to watch. It was just, you never really did feel like they had a grasp or had a chance to win the game.
Well, you know, one thing about it, I don't know where most of our viewers sit on this topic, Eric. I know where you do, and I'm not an advocate of coaches should be hired or fired, but I think that if, you know, Neil Brown, as he comes in to these last 2 games in his 6th season with Central Florida at home and then follows up the week of Thanksgiving at Texas Tech, I think you would agree, Eric, he's got to go 6-6 and get to a bowl game.
Yes.
I think, in order to keep his job.
He definitely has to win Saturday. I mean, this is you have to win senior night, senior day, or whatever. They're coming to your home field. You have to get this win Saturday, or you're going to be packing your bags.
And I know that one year doesn't have anything to do with the other. I know West Virginia went to Orlando and handled Central Florida fairly well last year.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it doesn't matter what they did last year, but I think you'll have a little to build on. And I think they have a good chance to win the game, but I saw a stat today. This is the 6th time in a row that West Virginia's been underdog.
And I'm amazed that I
record.
saw that West Virginia's a home underdog.
Home
this
dog
week.
again.
Because I thought West Virginia might be the favorite, but apparently the odds makers don't think so.
They're a home dog.
But here's something I've got good news about the Big 12 that was just released later this afternoon. Eric, you may or may not have had a chance. When I say this afternoon, we're recording this on Monday, November the 18th. But I know what a big NBA fan you are. And actually, you're like, how does the Big 12 tie into the NBA? But it does in this case, because this is what we call the musical chairs of television, because the popular show on TNT Inside the NBA, because the TNT is losing the NBA, is going to switch over to ESPN and ABC now. So
Wow.
ESPN has picked up that show. They signed that deal this afternoon. As this
So they'll have that whole
quarterback.
crew.
You'll have the whole crew: Charles
Barkley,
Barkley,
Kenny Smith,
Kenny the Jet Smith,
Shaq, yeah.
right? Shaq, and
I don't know how much if you watch it, but
oh, I do. It is
must see TV,
and that's why when I heard that TNT was losing the NBA, I hated it for that. So anyway, ESPN picked that up, and now with TNT losing the NBA. And they've already got some of this going on. They've got some college basketball games going on. They signed a deal with the Big 12 that 13 Big 12 football games will be on either TNT or TBS, which what that means West Virginia, some of their games may be on there where you don't need the streaming service ESPN Plus to get it. You may have access to them on either TBS or TNT.
Yeah, that's big news for
For
a
the
lot
Big 12.
of Big 12 followers. And I'm thinking now it's taking me back to the 80s, because I can remember back in the 80s on TBS you could watch college football.
Right.
I remember just watching teams that I never really followed, but you could just turn on TBS and there you had it.
Well, once again, with the portal and all these conferences changing networks, once again, ladies and gentlemen, REO Speedwagon, just roll with the changes.
Yeah.
And that's what we got to do. And we also have to do what with this podcast?
You have to like, share, and subscribe. Definitely subscribe. You might not like us, but subscribe. And at Warden Broadcast Network on YouTube.
And also this podcast brought to you in part by Massey Power Sports, and they are big Carolina Panther fans. I hold that up. The Panthers Hall of Honor. Carolina Panthers take on the Chiefs in their next home game, and they got 0% financing on their side-by-sides, and also Modley's. And Modley's Plumbing and Heating, you dial them up 304-253-HELP. Quickly, Marshall playing good. The Thundering Herd will be at Old Dominion, and then they'll wrap up their last game the week of Thanksgiving against James Madison.
Yeah, and Marshall's they control their own fate here. That we had a chance to look over it this past weekend, you and I said, hey, they go on the road, and if they win at Old Dominion, it's for their side of the bracket of their conference to get into the championship game. I think they're 5-1. I think James Madison has lost 2 games going in it. So, matter of fact, I think if they win out, they're going to be in the championship game for the conference.
And I'm sure you won't mind this, because we're limited of time. We're going to just skip Virginia Tech for this week. I'm sure that you don't mind that. Well, before we get into our college football picks, I just want to take you through the fake punt between Notre Dame and Virginia. For the ones who don't know what I'm talking about, you can Google that, or you can also go on YouTube and see that might have been the only play, Eric, that you watched of Notre Dame and Virginia on Saturday. But it was a tremendous fake punt. And then I'm going to tell you why it was legal, but the referees threw a flag. Yeah,
they did a variation of what was a fumble-rooski, which was outlawed back in the day. Nebraska used to run it all the time. But the ball didn't hit the ground. And I remember watching it and going, man, that is a cool play. People should write that down. And we watched it. They replayed it. And then the flag came and they said, it was an illegal play.
They said a lot of things. And what's amazing, Notre Dame had 2 touchdowns called back in 3 plays. In fact, Jaden Harris, who played at Marshall last year, caught a touchdown early in the game. He caught a 73-yard touchdown that got called back on a legit hands to the face, and that was a legit call that rubbed out that touchdown. So then Notre Dame on 3rd and forever threw a little screen pass, and now it's time to punt. And Marcus Freeman said that he had told the officials he was going to run this play. And what they did, and this is what I don't even understand, and I want to definitely get your take on this. According to the referees, and I think they just totally botched it, they said the reason the play was illegal because Jack Kaiser, number 24, who took the snap, was under center, but he wasn't. He was 2 yards behind the center, and it was a shotgun, and he turned around and handed it to Faison, number 6, and he ran for a touchdown. So the explanation that the ACC came out with today, and I think they were just trying to cover their own tracks, is because that they said that he was under center, but he wasn't, and he was 2 yards off from behind the center, and I think the ACC just got it wrong.
Yeah, he was the up back. Right. He definitely was not under center. Yes. Because I remember, but it was such a well-designed play. The camera lost it for a second. Right. The camera lost it, and then all of a sudden was like, oh, there he goes. And he's down the sideline for a touchdown.
And the thing that Marcus Freeman said why he got so mad, and I've never seen in his 3 years as head coach as mad as he was.
He was losing.
He said because in the preseason and both bye weeks, they brought ACC officials into practice, and they ran variations of, they said they have 8 fake punts and 6 fake field goals that they're saving to run it at the right time to make sure that what they do is all legal. And they got the thumbs up on this play. It was legal. And he said he warned the official they were going to do it, and it still got called back. And that's why he was as mad as he was.
Well, you know how I feel lately about officiating. I mean, I know it's a tough job, but all Saturday we watched a lot of big missed calls. I'm talking about even in the Pitt-Clemson game. And you know I hate Pitt, but Pitt, a tremendously bad missed call late in that game cost them the game.
And you know, Eric, I don't think it's just you and I. I think sports fans in general, if you go across this country, I think they all pretty much are saying the same sentiments that they know how tough it is. But I think because you have an official shortage, that you have certain officials in these certain games that are really these games the moments are too big for certain officials.
Yeah, I mean, they just looked really out of sorts in that Notre Dame game after they called it. I think they were like, oh man, I think.
Well, it took them like 5 minutes for them to figure out,
really
are we going to say, why is it legal formation? First it was the number, then it was a guy in motion, then it was this, then it was that. But at the end, they move on.
It reminded me of that All-State, or that that commercial where the refs got together and said, did you see it? No, did you see it? And they were like, your mic is on.
Yeah. All right, we have to do what?
Like, share, and subscribe at Warden Broadcast Network.
And also, the podcast is always brought to you by Modley's Plumbing and Heating, 304-253-HELP, and also by Massey Power Sports, 0% financing right now on the side-by-sides. And Massey's are big fans of the Carolina Panthers. Want to give Carolina a little bit of love by putting that out there on the screen. All right, one of our favorite times, Eric, is we're the committee of two, and we're going to add this as part of our bonus. We normally do this as in a separate bonus podcast, but because we have no high school football to talk about, we're going to do it now. So we will start, and I'll start first. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, Eric and I do not share our picks. So he's hearing my selections for the first time as I'm hearing his selections for the first time. My number 12 team, and I've had them in all the times we've done this still, is Boise State.
Boise State at number 12 for you. And mine is Ole Miss. I didn't have them in my bracket last week, but certain things happened this weekend where I move them in at 12.
Right, and I put University of Georgia at number 11 with a big win over Tennessee. Georgia playing their way back into the picture.
That's what I have as well. Georgia Bulldogs barked their way back into the playoffs.
And number 10, I have Ole Miss, and I have to put Ole Miss ahead of Georgia because they beat them. They each have 2 losses, and I think head-to-head should matter. So that's why I have Ole Miss 1 slot ahead of Georgia.
Yeah, and I'm going with, we're at 10, I'm going with Indiana.
All right, number 9, I have the Alabama Crimson Tide.
So at number 9, I have Alabama Crimson Tide.
Oh, we actually agree. Not only on the team, but on the same seeding.
Yep.
The number 8 team, I have the Penn State Nittany Lions.
And number 8, I have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
Well, that would be something either Alabama at Penn State or Alabama at Notre Dame should it play out that way.
Correct.
Number 7, I have the Indiana Hoosiers, who have that big game with Ohio State.
Well, I have at number 7, I have Boise State.
Number 6, I have the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame.
At number 6, I have the Penn State Nittany Lions.
And number 5, I have the Ohio State University.
And number 5, I have Ohio State.
And coming in at number 4, I'll move SMU 1 slot back. I had them number 3 last week. SMU hangs on to beat Boston College. I slid SMU back 1 slot to number 4.
Well, I have a group of 5, Colorado coming in now at number 4.
Number 3 is where I have Colorado. BYU loses, they're out. Colorado's in. And if BYU continues to win and Colorado continues to win, that will be a elimination.
It's going to get settled.
Yeah, but I have Colorado moving in at number 3.
So I have Miami in at number 3.
And I have Miami out after they lost to Georgia Tech. But once again, for me, Miami can play their way in because they still, they're still in the driver's seat as far as making the playoffs. Because if they win out the regular season, they'll be in the ACC championship.
They'll be in the ACC championship.
And number 2, I have Texas.
2, I have Texas.
And Oregon at number 1.
And Oregon holding down the 1 spot.
So this is how I would have it. I'd have the 9-8 game would be number 9 Alabama at number 8 Penn State. Winner plays Oregon.
I have number 9 Alabama at number 8 Notre Dame. Winner playing Oregon.
The 12-5 matchup, Boise State 12 at Ohio State. The winner takes on number 4 SMU.
And I have the 12-5 as Ole Miss, Ohio State. Winner playing Colorado.
And the 10-7 game, I have Ole Miss at Bloomington to take on the Hoosiers of Indiana. Winner takes on Texas.
At my 10-7 game, I have Indiana at Boise State on the Smurf turf, and they move on to play Texas.
And the 11-6 matchup, I have Georgia coming to South Bend to take on the Irish. Winner plays Colorado.
Well, I have Georgia at Penn State, and the winner going to Miami to play the Hurricanes.
So I think as far as team goes, I think we have 11 of the 12. I have SMU. You have Miami. We might disagree on some of the seedings, but as far as the teams themselves, I think we're kind of on it.
Yep, we have the same teams except for one.
One. All right, now it's time to switch to the National Football League, and we got to talk about barking dogs. And boy, that dog, not only did it bark, it bit. It won the game straight out. And the Pittsburgh Steelers were getting 3.5. They won the game straight out, 18-16. And Eric, you had the Steelers the week before, and
Yep.
they bit for you, they bit for me, and
Exactly
now
right.
with that win, I'm 7-4, and you had.
I had the Cincinnati Bengals, and they lost, just gave the game away at the end. I mean,
They were down big.
I've
They
gone over
came
all
back.
my barking dogs. My dogs got the dog catcher after them or something.
All right,
man. I
so
don't know what's
now
going
through
on.
11 weeks in the NFL, my barking dogs are 7-4. Eric, you started off on. You're now 5-6.
Yep, 5-6.
All right, so here is my barking dog for this week in the National Football League. I'm going to take the Chargers. The Chargers are a 3-point underdog at home to the Ravens on Monday night. That would be November the 25th. And I'm going to take the Chargers at home as my barking dog.
Okay, and here's where I'm going because I'm just taking this one. It's just because the Packers slid by it last week with a block kick against the Bears. They're hosting the 49ers. 49ers coming in at 1.5-point dogs. I'd like 49ers to win, and I'm going to give you a bonus one. The Dallas Cowboys go in to the Washington Commanders, 10-point dogs, and I'm taking the Cowboys.
And I will say this, and I think you would agree with me. I don't remember the last time that Washington was favored over Dallas, at least not in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, because it's not a rival.
Well, of course it's a rivalry. Washington Dallas will always be a rivalry. But now that the table is flipped. The script is flipped, where Dallas was the dominant team and Washington was like in the cellar. Now Dallas has gone to the cellar.
We're not in the cellar, my friend.
Well, no, as long as the New York Giants are there.
As
long as the Giants are there, you won't be in the cellar. But when you look here toward Thanksgiving and you look at the standings, Washington is up and Dallas is down. And that's something over the last 3 or 4, 5 years just hadn't been the case, all kidding aside.
Yeah, that's for sure. But hey, we're ready. We're gonna come. I can't wait. We're gonna have our nice little Thanksgiving Friendsgiving party. We'll have to check it out.
We'll have to
have
check
a lot
it
of
out.
fun with it.
All right. Well, hopefully, when we have this podcast, episode 14 next week, we are talking about high school sports. We hope it. And Eric, I always say we can't do anything about anything that we have no control over. So we just have to wait and see. It's in the court's hands, and hopefully the right thing happens.
Let's just figure it out for the kids. And all joking aside, the kids are the ones getting hurt, penalized.
And before we say our goodbyes, remember, REO Speedwagon, roll with the changes. That's what we have to do, roll with the changes. And we want to do what, Eric?
Like, share, and subscribe at Warden Broadcast Network.
And this podcast, like all of our podcasts, brought to you by Modley's Plumbing and Heating. Modley's, you can dial them up at 304-253-HELP. And by Massey Power Sports, they're big Carolina Panther fans, so I want to show a little love to the Carolina Panthers. And they got great deals on their side-by-sides, 0% financing. So I'm Eris Lowery.
And I'm Eric Thomas.
And this has been the podcast. You may not agree with us.
Bye.
Hope everybody has a pleasant day.